Good evening. The Hawthorne Board of Education regular meeting for the month of March is being called to order. The time is 7:02. Public portion of the meeting begins. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law is enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the business administrator, board secretary, has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, communicated to the Herald News, the Record, and filed with the clerk of the Borough of Hawthorne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carr,
Here.
Ms. Goff,
Here.
Dr. Morell,
Here.
Mr. Palouse,
Here.
Mr. Reicher,
Here.
Mr. Totaro,
Here.
Mr. Turco, Mr. Clavijo.
Here. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the flag of the United States of America
United States of America.
And
and the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One nation,
under
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting regulations. During each regular meeting, 2 opportunities are provided for citizens to ask questions and to make comments. During the first opportunity, early in the agenda, the meeting is open to the public for the purpose of addressing items listed for approval on this agenda only. The second opportunity occurs just prior to adjournment, when citizens may address any subject matter that is pertinent to and or directly related to the operation of the school district. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question during the public portion of the meeting, you may submit the question by accessing the Q&A feature on the bottom of the Zoom screen, or you may submit a question via our Board of Education email address at hawthorneboe@hawthorne.k12.nj.us. When submitting questions via Zoom or email, please be sure to include your first and last name, address, and email address, followed by your question. We'll do our best to answer all questions in the order in which they are received. If for some reason we are unable to answer your question, someone from the district will respond using the email address you provided. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Please note that the board will not respond to comments regarding students or board employees in light of the privacy rights held by those individuals. Moreover, the board discourages comments about such individuals and will not be responsible for such comments. Members of the public who choose to speak during this public session should carefully consider their comments, since they could be held personally liable for any statements they make. Finally, please note that in accordance with the district policy, the board will not officially comment or respond to any matter mentioned unless it can confirm that the matter has first been brought to the attention of the appropriate school personnel in an attempt to resolve the issue. Public be heard, agenda items only. Nothing in the chat. Any emails, Mr. Spirito?
No, there are no emails at this time.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no one, we'll close out the public portion of the meeting, public be heard portion of the meeting. Next, we are going to have the oath of office being administered to our newly appointed board member, Jen Ehrentraut. Ms. Engel, floor is yours.
Okay. Ms. Ehrentraut, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. You're muted. Okay. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Jennifer Ehrentraut, do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
and this state under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, Jennifer Ehrentraut, do solemnly swear
or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
or affirm that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
and that I am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
nor disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
nor disqualified due to a conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Engel. Ms. Ehrentraut, welcome. Roll call, please.
Mr. Carr,
Here.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
Here,
Dr. Morel,
Here.
Mr. Palouse,
Here.
Mr. Reicher,
Here.
Mr. Totaro,
Here.
Mr. Turco,
Here.
Mr. Clavijo.
Here. Moving on with the agenda, approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting, both public and private, February 9th, the ones for February 17th, special meeting, ethics training, and also February 24th, special meeting, board candidate interviews, which are private. Entertain a motion?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Palouse,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Now moving on with the agenda, no correspondence I'm aware of. Reports. Ms. Carini, may we have your student council rep report, please?
Yeah, hi. I just want to take a second to introduce myself to the new board member. Hi, I'm Ali Carini. I'm a junior at Hawthorne High School, and I'm the student council board of ed rep. So I'm like usually in these meetings or always in these meetings, but nice to meet you and welcome. So yeah, okay. With that being said, I'll just start. Good evening, everyone. March marks a new chapter at HHS as we progress forward and move on with our 4-day in-person schedule starting this week, while it's still in accordance with state and CDC guidelines. This gives our students more opportunity to enjoy the social aspect of high school, as well as learn in a more personal environment if they choose to return to school in person. Continuing its focus on cultural diversity, in March, the library spotlights Women's History Month, highlighting contributions of women to events in history and contemporary society, as well as highlighting Irish American Heritage Month, being celebrated with an emphasis on Irish authors. Through the Media Center, all teachers have been given resources, including access to digital videos, books, and websites to help integrate women's history into our curriculum. The annual March Madness library style is up and running through an online voting system with QR codes placed in the hallway for easy contactless access to the ballot. 16 books in 4 brackets are competing this year. Each week, new winner brackets are announced and weekly raffle winners are selected. Students who vote each week are entered into the final grand prize raffle for a $25 gift card. The goal of this event is to encourage discussion and debate over books, as well as to promote the fun of reading. 42 students recently attended the online launch of the new club, Team Lakota, under the advisorship of Ms. DiGeronimo. The acronym TEAM stands for the Empathy, Equality, Entrepreneurship Mission. Members of this club will meet to learn about the Native American Lakota culture and history, which promotes empathy, empower the young people living on the reservation to promote equality, and support the reservation through the organization team promoting entrepreneurship. The club will continue to meet and the remainder of the year and will be spending time in exploration, research, and planning. Further fundraising and outreach will take place next school year. In Bear sports news, boys and girls basketball, cheerleading, and bowling were all able to successfully finish out their seasons. Congratulations to all of these athletes, including our senior sport winter athletes, for their dedication over the years and their perseverance through a complicated season. As part of our second winter season, volleyball and wrestling have begun practices over the last few weeks and both begin their regular season games this week. Winter track has also kicked off their season and will have their first regular meet away at Glen Rock later in the week. Indoor sporting events for home games are still able to be viewed via the live stream on our district website, and a special thanks to parents, coaches, and our athletes who have been patient and cautious while entering an uncharted territory when it comes to sports regulations. With that being said, that'll conclude my report for the month of March. Thank you so much and hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you very much. Great job on the report and great job introducing yourself. Mrs. Perito, may we have your superintendent's report, please?
Yes, thank you. So I would also like to welcome Ms. Erin Trout. Welcome to the board. Look forward to working with you in your new role. So just I have a number of things to go over, so bear with me. I actually also have a video I'm going to be sharing with the board in a few moments. But I want to start, as Ali mentioned, just congratulating our winter sport, our 2A winter season sports, boys and girls basketball and bowling on a successful season. I'm proud that we're able to provide this opportunity for our student athletes. I know it wasn't easy. There were a lot of regulations, and we appreciate all the hard work that went into it by our coaches and our student athletes. I also want to thank our parents for their, for their understanding and flexibility during the season. I know there were some changes with fans being allowed, and just appreciate how parents were patient with us as we implemented those changes. Look forward to our new season. I want to congratulate our wrestling team and our girls volleyball team on their victories. First competition today, and they both were successful in their first competitive games today. And obviously winter track, as Ali mentioned, will be starting soon as well. The spring sports, there will be, I just want to comment that there will be a little overlap actually with our these winter sports that are happening now in our spring sports, but obviously students will have the opportunity to participate in both. If they're currently participating in either volleyball, winter track, or wrestling, it will not prohibit them from participating in our spring sports, whether it's baseball, softball, spring track, lacrosse, or golf. They can still participate in both. So, but there will be a little overlap with the seasons. The goal of the NJSIAA was to try to have a full spring season, as where our other seasons were a little bit of a modified season, a little bit of a shorter season. So although winter track doesn't end until March 27th and volleyball and wrestling don't end until April 24th, our spring sports actually begin on April 1st. So again, there will be a little overlap, but students will have the opportunity to participate in both. And look forward to, again, watching our student athletes participate not only during the winter, the second half of the winter season, but our spring season as well. A couple of quick thank yous. I want to first thank the mayor and borough administrator, Eric Maurer, for their efforts. I've been working with them in our efforts to try to get our teachers vaccinated as quickly as possible. As the board is aware, I've made some calls myself personally to some local entities, some of our local pharmacies, to try to expedite that process. And the Mayor Goldberg and Eric Maurer have been reaching out to Patterson, because they are our local health department, to try to encourage them to assist in that process. So I just want to thank them for their efforts in doing that. Unfortunately, we have not been successful in confirming a specific time for our teachers here locally in Hawthorne, but I can tell you that teachers are working hard on their own to try to access the other sites that are available locally to get their vaccinations. But we'll continue to try to expedite that process for all of our faculty and staff. I want to commend Ms. Weigert on running our HHS class of 2025 virtual scheduling event last night. I thought she did an outstanding job of presenting last night and presenting a very detailed and thorough presentation of all that goes on at Hawthorne High School, not just with student schedules, with extracurricular programs and the activities that are happening at the high school. Again, I want to thank her for that program last night. Also want to thank Mrs. Zach, Mr. Galuccio, Mr. Codomo, Mr. Mazzacca, Mrs. Pasquale, Mrs. Dever, and Dr. Trebona for attending that event and assisting as well. Okay, a couple of announcements. I want to start with, we have some good news to share with everyone. So first I want to share an email that I received from Ms. Lacasio, our art teacher at Lincoln Middle School. And I'm just going to read this. It just says, a few weeks back, I had entered some of our students' artwork in the Youth Art Month virtual state exhibition. And she is proud to announce that the artwork created by two of our 7th graders, Cindy Lynn and Marlon Alarcon, were selected to be in the exhibition. This is a wonderful honor, as only 10 works of art were selected from each county. So congratulations to those two 7th graders. She goes on to say they work so hard in these projects, especially given the circumstances, and I am so proud. And she attached an example of those, and I'll share those samples with the board. But I just want to congratulate those two students and thank Ms. Lacasio for all that she is doing. I also want to mention to the board that Washington School is currently recording their wax museum. There'll be a virtual wax museum this year. So they are in the process of putting that together, recording it. And when it is complete, they will share it with us, and I will make sure that I share it with the board as well. Looking forward to that. It's always a great event, as we all know. We've attended, many of you have attended it in person in the past. So there will be a virtual version of that this year. Look forward to seeing it. The other thing I want to share, and I'm actually going to share the video with you, but I want to read this first. Our peer leaders, as you know, each year they usually come and present what they will be sharing with as part of the Teen Summit. So every year they put together, there's some sort of presentation, and I'm just going to share, Miss Clifford was kind enough to share a little narrative in the video with us. So I'm going to share this on behalf of Miss Clifford and Mr. Corvo, who are the leaders of our peer leader program, peer leader group. And it says, the Hawthorne High School peer leaders collaborated to create a video titled Meeting with Emotions for our submissions into the countywide competition. In our 30 seconds, we follow a stressed out student who is burdened by the stress of a test in an online classroom. We then shift focus into the student's inner emotions and how each one reacts to and copes with the stress. While anger wants to slam a laptop shut, boredom is unfazed by the prospect of a bad grade. All of the emotions outbursts are then ceased by the student's inner moral compass. Calming the chaos in his head, the peer leader encourages the student to try his best and tackle the test. The final scene returns to a more confident and collected student ready to take on the once daunting online assessment. Adapting to online school has been difficult for all students, and the peer leaders want to advocate and promote positive coping mechanisms for this stress. So again, they had to put together a 30-second clip to depict what she describes here, which will be submitted to the Teen Summit. So if I could, I would just like to share with you what they put together.
Morning, class. Are you all ready for your test?
Test? We have a test?
We never learned this!
Crying helps. Grades already low.
Yep, love that for me.
Guys, it's a test. We can't let online school get the best of Bray. Stay calm and he'll try his best.
All right, class, you may begin taking your test.
All I can do is try my best.
Okay, so that is what they will be submitting as part of the Teen Summit this year. So I just wanted to share that. Normally they come and present it But again, Ms. Clifford, Mr. Corvo were kind enough to share with me to share with the board. Okay, a couple other announcements. Our Diversity Alliance Committee continues to meet monthly. In fact, we've had a few meetings over the last few weeks. A lot going on with the Diversity Alliance Committee. We had the committee itself had a training that we participated in, a little workshop for our committee, which I thought went very, very well. And we also are meeting again this Thursday. But I did want to share with everyone in our community that we have decided to run some additional focus groups. So there will be an opportunity for an additional focus group for anyone in our community who's interested on Tuesday, March 23rd at 7:00 p.m. If you're interested in participating in this focus group, the information is on our district website. There is a link, I know it was sent out last Friday, the information, but the information is also available on our website. And we encourage parents and community members to participate in this focus group, which will help guide our focus for the committee moving forward. Okay, a couple other things in regard to our schools. Obviously, as was mentioned by Allie, we began our combined cohort 4-day-a-week program on Monday. I had a chance to visit all 5 of our schools as well as the Bear Cave on Monday morning. I spent almost all morning just visiting all of our schools, and it was so wonderful to see all of our students back in school and the excitement and the energy that was back in the building. It was really, it was wonderful to see. Some of the teachers were treating it as a celebration, almost like a first day of school, because some of our students hadn't had a chance to meet each other in person yet. So especially our young students, our kindergartners especially, really haven't had a chance to meet each other. So it truly was like a first day of school for many of our students, but really exciting to see all that went on that day. We look forward to continuing with these combined cohorts for the rest of this week, obviously, and then into next week. And then obviously we'll be on spring break. But I want to thank all of our administrators and our teachers who worked so hard to get their classrooms ready for these combined cohorts. Everyone worked really hard to make sure that things were ready to roll for our students. So thank you to everyone who made that possible. With that said, every day I do receive the daily COVID numbers in town. And to be honest with you, it is a little concerning to see that we are beginning to see another spike in our numbers. Obviously, I continue to monitor these numbers. I look at these numbers. I've been looking at them since July. I continue to monitor these numbers, and I will continue to monitor them as we move forward. I did share an update with the board today, just to give you an idea of where we are at this point. I mean, we're not at the levels that we were in the fall, back in like November, December, when the numbers were extremely high, but we are seeing an increase over the last few weeks, really, more than ever. So I would just remind everyone in our community to please continue to follow the recommendations of the CDC and the Department of Health. The good news is more and more people are being vaccinated every day, but we also have to be careful not to let our guard down because we want to keep our students in school. We really do. We think it's best for our kids to be in school. And if we can keep these numbers down, it provides that opportunity to allow us to continue to move forward and not have to quarantine students and staff. So just please continue to follow those guidelines. The other thing I want to just mention is the travel quarantine that is currently in place. We are aware that certain states like New York and Pennsylvania have lifted those restrictions. They no longer have travel quarantines. We still do at this point today on March 16th, we still do. That could change, obviously, and we're aware of that. But we're just encouraging parents to be aware of that and to adhere to those guidelines that were shared in my letter that went out last week. Obviously, if things change, we will adjust as necessary as we move forward. As a district, we've also been discussing plans for the fourth marking period, which includes allowing some of our remote students to return if they choose to. I would just remind people to please get that information. There's a form that has to be filled out if you're choosing to bring your child back from remote learning to in-person. That form can be found on our district website. It was also linked to my letter last week. but that should be submitted no later than Friday, March 26th. I know it says Monday the 29th on the letter, but that's actually the Monday of our break. We're gonna ask that you get it in by Friday if possible, so that we can plan and be prepared for April 12th. There is some talk, I don't know if you saw today, there was some discussion from Dr. Fauci and the CDC about saying that 3 feet may be acceptable in classrooms, which would, to be honest with you, be a significant development for us. Obviously we've done our best to remain 6 feet in almost all of our classrooms. And I can tell you that we are in just about all of our classrooms still 6 feet. There are some classrooms that are less, but I can tell you that there are no classrooms that are closer than 4 feet. Most are 5 or 6 feet. There are a couple that are 4 feet just based on numbers and size of the room. But again, we'll continue to plan for that and be prepared for that April 12th transition, which is the beginning of the 4th market period. And finally, I just want to share that we as a school district are doing our best to navigate all that has happened over the last year. Obviously, the guidance continues to change, and we'll continue to adapt to that changing guidance. Obviously, there is no roadmap to what we're all dealing with, not just here in Hawthorne, but throughout the country. But as I said, we're doing our best to just stay up to date with the guidance that is available to us and provide opportunities for our students to be in school, because we know that that's what's best for our kids. We'll continue to keep our parents and our community informed as to any changes to our school plans. And in the meantime, if you have questions, please reach out to your building principal. We'll be happy to try. I'm not promising that we have all the answers, but we will do our best to answer the questions that you ask and provide the information that is available to us. All right, so again, just want to thank everybody for their support, and that includes the board as well for your support over the last year, and look forward to hopefully increasing our instruction as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Perito. Thank you for your continued leadership and for your detailed report. Moving on to curriculum instruction, Ms. Goff, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Curriculum and Instruction recommend the following resolutions. CI1 and CI2 on page 3, CI3 through CI11 on page 4, and CI35 on page 12 of the addendum. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion?
I have a question, Mr. President. Mr. Spirito, this is probably for you. For CI35, we're adding the LLD program at Jefferson. Will all of the other LLDs remain at Roosevelt?
Oh, yes. And this, let me just give you a little background on what CI35 is. So this is the intent of this. This is not a program that will run long-term. Based on what's happened over the last year, we have a number of preschool students who were looking to place in our STEPS program. But because of the intermittent instructional program and students not being in school, and they don't want to misplace these students. They want to ensure that they're placed properly. So we're going to create this program sort of as a transition for those preschoolers prior to going into kindergarten and prior to placing them in either LLD or STEPS. That's really the intent. It's kind of a transitional year. And then what they'll do is at the end of this year, they'll then place them appropriately based on we're hoping that we're going to all be back in school, right, 5 days a week next year. So they'll have an opportunity to truly evaluate these students to ensure that they're placed properly. So that's the intent behind it. This program will run at Jefferson, but it's really only intended for 1 year, not a long-term program.
Okay, thank you. So that starts in September?
Yes.
Okay. But then everyone else, the others would be at Roosevelt. Okay,
They would remain where they are, yes.
thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
You did, yeah, yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Palooz,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro, Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Ms. Goff, personnel, please.
Sure thing. The following resolutions are pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools. P12 through P21 on page 5, carried over onto page 6. P22 on page 6. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Palooz,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrout,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Mr. Turco, Finance Administration, please.
Thank you. Before I move forward, Trudy, I don't have the addendum in front of me. Is there anything for finance on the addendum?
No, there's not.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, first I'm going to just acceptance of donations, acceptance of a donation of 30 whiteboard marker and eraser sets valued at $80.57 to Miss Lespiza's third grade class at Washington School. We thank you for the donation. Prior to reading the resolutions, I'm going to now turn it over to Trudy to discuss our preliminary budget that we are voting on tonight. Trudy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Turco. So tonight's budget, we're going to review it. I sent the board all the documents that we're discussing. First thing is this budget supports additional staff. We'll be having an alternative teacher, a paraprofessional for the alternative program, a new 5th grade inclusion teacher, a new study skills teacher for the high school, a new study skills teacher for middle school, a supervisor 6 through 12, those 2 of those, a math teacher at LMS, a half-time custodian, a .4 gym teacher at Roosevelt, a psychologist, and an LDTC. So that's a lot of additional stuff that will really help the district. So the first thing we're going to look at of the documents I send you were the revenues. And there were just a few changes this year. Our taxes will be going up approximately 2%. You'll notice that interest rates, I budgeted a little less for it, and I also budgeted a little less for gate receipts. But we did get additional state aid of $318,824. And that was helped us with the different additions. Does anyone have any questions on revenues? I know the revenues is not much really to discuss. Does anyone have any questions on that before we get into the appropriations? Okay. Okay, so the appropriations, I'll go page by page with you. So if you have questions on them, stop me at each page. On the left-hand side, every row is numbered. So if you have a question, you can just ask me. The first one, line 1, our charter school enrollment has increased. Line 2, our PCTI enrollment has also increased. This year's budget, we had budgeted for 114 students, and we actually have 126 attending. In next year's budget, we are budgeting for 146 students attending PCTI. If you go further on down the list, so different changes. I put all the paraprofessionals in one spot to make it easier. And that's really it on page 1. Is there anyone have any questions? Okay, page 2, you'll see on this page, You'll have the new psychologist and new learning LDTC. You'll have the 2 new supervisors on line 38. Any questions on that?
I have a question. I see that we're replacing the Mint education. Is that in in its entirety? Because I know
Yeah.
she does things other than, I'm sorry, I know that company does things other than just being LDTC. There's like other things that that company does.
Yes, so to the answer that is yes, we'll be replacing her with a new school psychologist and a new LDTC,
Okay, both full-time?
both full-time.
Awesome, thank you.
Rudy, I just have a question about the supervisors. It's grades 6 through 12, but do we know what academic areas it's going to be in, or?
Yeah, there'll be 2 supervisors, Bruce, 1 for math and science, 1 for humanities. It's like, be English social studies and math science, 2 separate supervisors.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, page 3. Okay. There weren't many changes from the prior year. This really goes over workshops, memberships. The only big line change was on line 72 for technology, because we'll be getting new switches and new servers, and that's why that line increased. Okay. If I go too fast, please let me know. Page 4. Line 85, that gives you where we pay the rent for the alternative program, the Bear Cave, and the board office. Also on line 82 is where we have the additional half-time custodian. Page 5, line 107, because the enrollment for PCTI has increased, we have to supply an additional bus. This year we had supplied 2 buses, and the next year we'll have to supply 3 buses. Our insurances have gone up a little bit. Our workman's comp insurance has gone up.
Trudy, I have my annual question about tuition reimbursement. Being in the field, this is something that I will advocate for continually to make sure our teachers have what they need to professionally develop themselves and get whatever they need. Did we use the full fund this year?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And I see that we're proposing the same amount for next year.
Correct.
Is that something that you think we should look to increase, or do you think that that number is still pretty good?
That's actually negotiated in the contract, that number.
I'll leave it to that then. Okay. I just like to see that we're using it, because when Bruce and I first got on the board, that was not being fully used every year and was being just sitting there. So I'm very happy to hear that that's being taken advantage of.
But Abby, I will tell you that our professional development for in-house and sending our teachers, that is funded in this budget, and be on page 2, line 42 through 44. We will be funding professional development.
Good. Yeah, this is just tuition reimbursement. I'm sorry that I said that.
That's okay.
I'm very happy.
We will be funding that. Dr. Trebona does a great job with that. Okay. On page 5, line 120, excuse me, 127 and 128, that's where we're the new study school teacher for the middle school and high school. They're listed there. On page 6, just our special ed staffing. You can, so. On page 7, line 169 and 170, that's where we put the new alternative teacher, the new paraprofessional, since it's a new program.
Rudy, could we just go back to page 6 for 1 second?
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I'm leaning my head. I didn't print this out. I was trying to be green and now it's the orientation is sideways. So I'm looking this way. Line 144, behavioral disability supplies. It looks like we didn't have any this year, but we're projecting 251,000 for next year.
So what happened is we switched the name of it from multiple disabled to behavioral. So if you look at the line right below it, 146 and 147,
Okay,
okay?
perfect.
Okay. And then we did not budget anything for capital projects this year, with being that we're working on the referendum. There was nothing budgeted for that. And then I budgeted 80%, between 75 and 80% for IDEA and title funds. So, does anyone have any questions for me? I tried to put as many notes on the sheets I had shared with you, so you were aware of how everything was budgeted. No questions? Okay, Mr. Turco.
Thank you, Trudy. And once again, anyone have any questions for Trudy or Rick? Nope.
I have one quick question, Mr. Turco. I'm sorry.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. Sprito, the 2 new child study team members that you are hiring, will they be located in the same school? Do you have like placement figured out?
I'll be honest, I'm not sure where they'll actually be placed.
They're additional.
Yeah, they're new, they're additional, but I'm just not sure where they'll be placed right now, because sometimes, depending on who we hire, Mrs. Pignatello might shift people, so I'm not 100% sure.
I just like to hear that they're additional.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move forward. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Finance and Administration recommends the following resolutions. F23 on page 7 through A28 on page 8. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Dr. Morell,
Yes.
Mr. Palouse,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Ms. Goff, claims, please.
Sure thing. In accordance with NJAC 6A:23-2:11B, and C4, I reviewed the bills and everything was in order.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Palouse,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco, Mr. Turco, I think you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
With reservation on anything, any bills pertaining to Northern Regionals or PCTI, yes on everything else.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morell,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Mr. Totaro, buildings and grounds, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendents of Schools, the Committee on Buildings and Grounds recommends the following resolutions. BG 30 on page 8, BG 31 and 32 on page 9. Also on the addendum, page 12, BG 36 and BG 37, as well as BG on page 13, BG 38 and 39 continued on to page 14. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrout,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Palousse,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Mr. Totaro, policy, please.
Yes, Mr. President. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Committee on Policy recommends the following resolutions. PO 33 on page 9 and PO 34 on page 10. On behalf of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Totaro,
Yes.
Mr. Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Ms. Erentrout,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morel,
Yes.
Mr. Palousse,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Moving on to committee liaison reports, starting out with Mr. Carr, legislative, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Tuesday, March 9th, Senate Education Committee met and approved the following bills. School District Regionalization, Bill number S3488, establishes criteria for state-funded regionalization studies, increases flexibility on regionalization cost apportionment, bars any regionalization that would encourage segregation, and provides financial incentives for districts losing state aid because of declining enrollment to regionalize by extending the schedule for their adjustment aid cuts. S3488 establishes an 8-year phase out of adjustment aid, stretched out from the current 4 years, for districts participating in a LEAP Local Efficiency Achievement Program regionalization study that continues if the districts involved elect to implement a regionalization plan. Through 2028 and 2029, newly established K-12 regional districts would receive the greater of the state aid to which the newly established district would be entitled, or the sum of the aid of the consolidated districts, including the 8-year adjustment aid phase out. Most importantly, S3488 ensures that the final decision to move forward with any regionalization plan remains subject to voter approval. This legislation represents a voluntary, incentive-based opportunity for districts to explore regionalization and determine if it would be beneficial to their students and their communities. Special ed services for 21 plus students, Bill S3434, requires Board of Education to provide special education and related services to certain students exceeding the age of eligibility for special education and related services. This bill requires the Board of Education to temporarily provide special ed and related services to certain students who exceed or will exceed the current age of eligibility for special ed and related services in the 2020-2021 school year and the 2021-2022 school year. Grade retention due to COVID, Bill number S3470, allows certain students to repeat a prior grade level during the 21-22 school year upon parental request. This bill provides that the 21-22 school year, a school district will permit a general education student enrolled in any of the grades K through 12 to repeat the grade level, provided that the parent, guardian, or other person having legal custody of that student submits a written request of grade retention to the superintendent of the school district on or before June 1st, 2021. Superintendent of the district will have the discretion to approve or deny a written request of grade retention after June 1st of 2021. A request to have a grade repeated based solely on concerns surrounding learning loss during the 2020-2021 school year shall be sufficient grounds for retaining in the same grade level during the next school year. Substance abuse screenings, Bill number S508, requires an annual substance use screening on each high school student provided by the school. Student screening positive will receive brief counseling, and the screener will assist the student with referral to treatment options if needed. The Department of Human Services and the Department of Children and Families, using existing public and private training resources, will make available the school district's training for personnel. Parents and/or guardians must be given prior written notice of the screening and an opportunity to opt the student out. Statements made by a student during a screening are considered confidential information and cannot be disclosed by a person receiving the statement to any other person without the prior written consent of the student and the student's parent or guardian, except in the case of immediate medical emergency or if disclosure is otherwise required by state law. A school district may opt out of the specific program required by the bill if it is implementing an alternative screening program and provides to the New Jersey Department of Education a detailed description of the alternative program. Bill number S555, Mental Health Task Force. This establishes a 16-member student mental health task force. The task force will include a school board member, the task force, which will include a school board member, will study and make recommendations regarding the following: identifying public school students who experience depression, anxiety, stress, or other psychological or emotional tension, trauma, or disorder; evaluation and expansion of counseling programs and services available to students experiencing mental health difficulties, and other programs designed to address issues related to student mental health; the relationship of student mental health to school safety and security; the amount of funding needed for public schools to employ the appropriate staff and to establish new programs or expand existing programs necessary to address student mental health; and an examination of other states which have implemented programs that have successfully addressed depression, anxiety, stress, or other psychological or emotional tension, trauma, or disorder among public school students, and reduce the number of students experiencing such difficulties. This task force will issue a final report of its findings and recommendations to the governor and legislature no later than 1 year after its organizational meeting. Bill number S1857, Community Schools Pilot. This establishes a 5-year community schools pilot program. The program would be managed by an in-state nonprofit organization selected by the NJDOE. That organization would provide group training sessions and information about community schools available to any district interested in establishing a community school. Additionally, the organization would be responsible for selecting up to 50 schools, including charter schools, that would receive direct assistance from a site coordinator assigned to that school. Bill number S2166, Sending District Representation, provides certain sending school districts one non-voting advisory representative on a receiving school district's Board of Education. The additional member will be a member of the Board of Education of the sending district who will be designated annually by that board. The representative of the sending district will be a non-voting member of the receiving district Board of Education and will serve on the board of the receiving district in an advisory role. The NJSBA, in accordance with its advocacy policy approved at the Spring 2020 Delegate Assembly, successfully secured amendments to ensure that a sending representative will always have the ability to speak at receiving board meetings and will have the ability to vote where sending representation is not the majority of the receiving board. And finally, S3253, Expedited Alternate Route Certification, would require the State Board of Education to authorize an alternate route to expedite the certification of persons to teach grades 7 through 12 at an early college high school. The alternate route will consist of 3-tiered certificate program, similar to the alternate route provided for charter school teachers. This certification would be used only for employment at an early college high school, not any other public school. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Passaic County School Boards Association, the meeting was held yesterday. It was held virtually. Both Dr. Morel and myself attended. I'd like to encourage us board members to reintegrate ourselves back to the organization. Besides the different updates that they provided from the state level, legal end and whatnot, the main presenters included 2 attorneys who the main topic was the legalization of marijuana and the implications on school districts and the workplace. Things that stood out to me were that a lot of this is being made up as they go along. While the laws are out there, the implementation is still yet to be determined. Something else that also stood out is that while the police department doesn't have the authority to let parents of minors know if they were under the possession of marijuana for their first offense, it doesn't necessarily, according to the attorneys that presented yesterday, it doesn't necessarily mean that the school districts cannot notify the parents. So I thought that was interesting. Dr. Morel, anything that stands out that you want to chime in with?
No, I think that was it. I think the importance is that our current board policies will remain in place, and we will still be able to notify parents if in the event any of our students were in possession or have seemed to be under the influence. And I thought that was an important distinction that was made.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, once again, just want to encourage us as a group to reintegrate ourselves to these meetings. Hopefully they'll start going in person Over the years, they have been a lot of value add for the most part. So I will keep you abreast of our following meetings. Moving on to NJSBA and curriculum and instruction, Ms. Goff.
Thank you. For NJSBA, I just would like to remind everybody to visit the website. They have many webinars that are either current or archived, and also their Facebook page is relatively active. They do Facebook Lives often. Additionally, just a reminder to complete your ethics disclosure by April 30th. It is a new process this year. It's a form that you have to fill out and then download and then upload. So give yourselves a few extra minutes to watch, to go through the slideshow that shows you how to do it. I tried a few times and it wasn't working. So just don't do it on the 30th because you may need to troubleshoot it. For CNI, we met on Tuesday, March 9th from 5:30 to 6:30. The first order of discussion was the combining of the cohorts, a very exciting day for everyone in the district, parents, teachers, and students alike. Mr. Spirito had shared with us many of the pieces of information he shared with you guys, that he had met with every school, and that almost every single classroom is at 6 feet apart, if not close to 6 feet. You know, the one caveat remains is that the high school, there are some cases, this seems to be regionally happening, even in my own district, high school children getting cases more so than other children. So we have to keep an eye out there. All hallways will remain one way. That will control the flow of people. At LMS, there will only be 2 transition periods due to there only being three blocks. HHS shut off their bell system, so that gives more freedom to when students are allowed to leave and enter the classrooms. Theoretically, the next phase, which we have no date on, but the next phase of the plan would be to reinstate the Wednesdays as another half day. So we would do 5 half days, hopefully. We also discussed the new team that Allie had shared with us, TEEM club at the high school. It was done at Pascack Valley, and Mr. DeMeo was very excited to start the club at our own high school. Ms. DiGeronimo did a lovely job of explaining it. There was a video that was shared. This club was only able to run due to another club not being running. There is a set number of clubs in the contract. And we will be approving a new list of extracurriculars. Did we do that tonight, Mr. Spirito? Was that on the agenda?
Yes, we did. We approved that. The team was one of them, and there was a list in the packet of all the ones we approved tonight, along with some of the coaches for the spring.
Awesome. We then discussed tier 3 supports at LMS. Teachers will appear on this agenda, and they did. Each grade level will have an identified group of students. ESL population will get their own support, but similar to the other students. We are increasing the offerings for the second cycle of K through 5 tier 3 support. It was such a success. But we are adding an additional 2 weeks just because of some inconsistencies due to snow days and other things. They're adding an additional 2 weeks to this cycle. We then discussed physics classes at the high school, science classes at the high school. There were 2 resignations on this agenda. So in order to replace these 2 teachers, we are using New Jersey Center for Teaching and Learning, which was also approved on this week's agenda. It's a state-approved program that will give live instruction streamed to our students, as well as asynchronous videos and lessons. We opted for additional live teacher support after hours. We signed a contract and the classes are beginning to transition. We are still actively pursuing a replacement teacher, but for the physical sciences and math at that level, it's difficult in a good year. So this is not an optimal time, but they're still on the hunt. The HHS Spain trip was canceled. Vouchers were issued and are good through September of 2022, and a letter was sent out in February. We got a Diversity Alliance Committee update, which Mr. Spirito shared. Dr. Trebona shared with us a TREPS update. TREPS is, for any of you who have had a 5th grade child in the district, a capstone project that usually takes place during 5th grade at the elementary schools. This year, that was thwarted due to COVID. There's usually a marketplace in December where they sell their wares and that they developed through a pretty elaborate entrepreneurship. And that didn't get to happen, but we will be offering them something called the $1 Million Pitch, which is a different TREPS experience, but they'll get a taste of TREPS. Some of the activities will be completed at home. At the end, they'll pitch their idea in a Shark Tank like presentation. Each school will have a panel of judges who has $1 million to give out to who they think their favorite pitches were. So that's something exciting. We're toying with streaming that so parents can see it. So we'll keep you updated on that. And the last large thing we discussed was summer school. We are going to run a traditional summer school program. HHS and LMS will have a credit recovery program. In the past, they did this online or they went elsewhere. I believe it was Clifton. We're now going to do it in-house. K-5 will have a summer school as well from 8:30 to 12. The need for K-5 will be determined by benchmarks and teacher referrals. We've gotten additional funds from something called the ESSER 2 or a CARES Act. So that will help to offset the cost of this. We will need to hire a summer principal and teachers once we have a closer look at how many sections we need of each subject. There are very stringent requirements to run a summer school program. So for 6 to 12, it has to be 60 hours to get the credit recovery. K-5 will run the extended school year for special education just as they normally would for 4 weeks. K-5 and extended school year will run for 4 weeks just as they normally would. This program will be in person, but could be remote if needed and depending on the governor's regulations. And lastly, we talked about, Mr. Sprito updated us briefly on LMS and their intramural program, which my son is a part of. There are currently 57 participants, and that's amazing. Anything that we can do at this point to give them a normal experience, and I really appreciate thinking outside the box and just doing what we need to. But that's super exciting that there are 57 people participating in that. That is all I have.
Very good, thank you. Moving on, Mr. Palouse, please have CPAC PTOs and negotiations if you have anything on that.
Thank you, Mr. President. Start with negotiations. The committee met several times this month and negotiations are still an ongoing process, and I'll have more information, as we move forward. Over to the PTOs. Tomorrow night, Washington PTO is having a fundraiser. It's too late to participate, but I thought it was something that was worth mentioning. I thought it was a pretty good idea considering tomorrow is St. Patty's Day. They're doing a virtual painting, and they're actually giving 2 canvases for 2 people. And when the canvases are complete, you put the 2 together and it actually forms a 4-leaf clover. So I thought that was an interesting idea. Over at Jefferson School, they actually have a new PTO website. It's jeffersonptohawthorne.com. And on the website, you can find flyers, announcement, links, meeting information, and online forms. It's a great idea to put everything in one place so parents can find things, a lot easier. At Roosevelt School, they're continuing the ShopRite gift cards where you can, if you shop or anybody shops at ShopRite, encourage them to, buy some gift cards. You pay face value for the cards, but Roosevelt earns a small donation for each card that they sell. Lincoln Middle School, I was able to find a posted open house video that is introducing LMS students to the high school opportunities. You can find the video either on the PTO, Lincoln Middle School PTO Facebook page, or you can go into YouTube and just search HHS Open House 2020. And the video, again, was produced by students. And it's just a high school introducing 8th graders to the opportunities that they have right here in Hawthorne. And high school PTO and the Ed Foundation continue to host their Wheel of Education every Sunday night at 7 p.m. To participate, please go to the Facebook page, which is HEF, HEF, and HHS PTO Wheel of Education. And I'm going to conclude with a letter from CPAC. They sent this to Mr. Spirito, and since I've been reporting on it for a really long time, I have the pleasure of reading this. And it says, CPAC is happy to announce that we have reached our goal of 1 million pull tab collections for the Ronald McDonald House. Ronald McDonald typically comes out to congratulate the winning organization. In light of COVID, we don't think this is currently possible. We will look into whether or not this is possible for future dates. The winning schools, first place Roosevelt will receive a $200 gift check. Second place for their collection is LMS, and Jefferson School came in third place. There are also student winners. $25 gift card for first place was Genevieve Michael. Second place was Mark Hooper, and third place Xavier Castellanos. On behalf of CPAC, we would like to thank everyone for their support. Our community service project benefits Ronald McDonald House will continue. So please continue to keep collect your pull tabs, and the prizes will remain the same moving forward. This is Stay Well, Dr. Alnetta Hooper, and Miss Robin Crawford, the Hawthorne, New Jersey CPAC co-presidents for 2021. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Very good. Awesome. Congratulations to CPAC. Mr. Tatara, Buildings and Grounds Council Liaison and Policy, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'll start off with Buildings and Grounds. We met via Zoom on March 9th, and the following are our updates. First, we had the rooftop heating units at LMS and Roosevelt. The unit at LMS will be replaced as of the third week of March. The unit at Roosevelt is scheduled to be sometime over the summer, and the cost is approximately $26,000. Secondly, the sterilizer for the wrestling mat cleaner. For the wrestling season activities, we had made a purchase for a sterilizer that will allow us to clean the mats in between each match in only 4 minutes. This process will decrease the amount of time and resources needed to ensure our wrestlers and coaches are safe. And then LMS, the gym floor refinishing and room divider replacement. The work is being planned for this summer. However, must be coordinated with various activities and work scheduled to take place. We will keep everyone apprised as we have more information. Bus shields. All the schools have been fitted out with DOT compliant and improved shields for separation of the students. Referendum updates, there are several pertaining to the district. We have removed asbestos in LMS and Roosevelt boiler rooms. LMS and Roosevelt have successfully completed final inspections of the boilers. The STEM and culinary arts rooms have received the C of O at the high school. LMS Media Center and Science Labs are pending the C of O, but anticipate being scheduled soon. Jefferson and Roosevelt roof work is completed. Graphics at all schools are completed except for the high school gymnasium, which we are pending review and approval of the graphic design, which I think, Mr. Spirito, that is something that was put out there. I don't know if that was finalized or not.
Yeah, when we met, they weren't finalized, but they are actually being installed tomorrow.
Beautiful, even better. We anticipate the window replacement at all schools being scheduled for late summer, early fall. Door replacements are being scheduled for the district sometime during the summer or after the new school year begins. If that is the case after the new school year, it will be taking place in the evenings. And this is all predicated on the shipment of the doors. Asbestos abatement in the tunnels is being is pending a bid issuance for Hawthorne High School. Emergency generators at all schools are under review and must be coordinated with the utility company prior to the bid issuance being solicited. I believe that's in with the utility for review. And the media center and arts rooms at Jefferson, Washington, and Roosevelt are being upgraded this summer as well. And the fire alarm replacement is pending approval bids and will also be taking place this summer. Overall, there are a tremendous amount of activity through the referendum, which will be taking place going into the new school year, and looking forward to the finished project. And one other thing outside of referendum, we will be looking into a new pickup truck to replace an existing truck that is at the end of its life expectancy. And I believe that concludes my report on building and grounds. Regards to council liaison, as per my review of the February 17th meeting, there were no items that were pertaining to the Hawthorne Board of Ed. And let's see, policy updates. Pursuant to the review of my most recent Strauss Esme, to the most recent Strauss Esme update, of the following are the updates provided. 6 of the 13 policies were eliminated or abolished, and many others were simply word changes. The policies abolished were P3431.1, P4431.1, P3431.3, P4431.3, P241501, and P241503. R1642 regarding earned sick leave law was revised. This has been revised and now indicated that we're following the compliance of law, and based on the complexity of the law, its level of importance to school district operations. This regulations guide is mandated and must be adopted by the board. PO 1643 was the family leave. This simply was updated to reflect the abolishment of several components within the policy, which I mentioned before, those policies that were abolished. PR 5330, administration of medical cannabis. This was previously reported on and adopted by the board. And 7425, lead test water in schools, as well as P2425 and P9713 were previously reported and adopted by the board and had minor references or word changes, if anything. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Turco, Finance and Administration, please.
Lou, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Once again, we did meet last week, and Trudy's presentation, obviously tonight, encompassed what the committee did speak about last week. Just for the edification of some of our newer members, what we obviously voted on tonight was the preliminary budget for 21-22. Trudy will now send it down to the county for their approval. After their approval, we can still make changes if necessary. Very improbable, but we can still do that. And then next month, we'll have a final and a more formal presentation to the public, which we will then vote on the final budget for 21-22. So I just wanted to, again, for Joe and Aaron and Alma, those are steps we'll be going through for the next tonight and for the next meeting. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Public be heard. As a reminder, when submitting questions or comments via email, please be sure to include your first and last name, address, and your question. Public be heard. Nothing in the chat. Mr. Spirit, any emails?
No, there are no emails.
Thank you. We'll give it a minute. Okay, seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close out the public be heard portion of the agenda. Moving on to new business. Any new business, anybody?
Mr. President, I'd like to ask something.
Sure, go ahead, Ms. Floor is yours.
This is probably directed towards you, but I'd like to hear the opinions of everybody. As we are now having our students in school more often and hopefully looking at a more vaccinated population and a downturn in the number of COVID cases, I was hopeful to get a clearer picture on when the board will resume meeting in person.
Sure, at this point, I think that's where we're trending. April would probably be an in-person meeting. Like yourself, I'd be curious to know if anybody wants to chime in and wants to provide an opinion on it.
I'd just be curious to know how many people have been vaccinated.
I mean, I've had my first vaccine.
Who will be fully vaccinated by our next meeting?
What's the date of that meeting, Mr. Sprito?
The 20th.
Okay.
20th.
Thanks, Trudy.
I mean, I'll be fully vaccinated.
We've gone this long, just making a suggestion, being safe instead of sorry. Maybe when we're all vaccinated, we meet in person.
I respectfully hear your opinion, Mr. Turco, but we can stay 6 feet apart. I mean, I'm not saying we go back to the Diaz. I'm just saying that
okay.
The high school or a different venue. Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable even being fully vaccinated, to be honest with you, sitting next to somebody that close.
Hey, you sit next to me.
There's
To
other
be honest,
concerns other than COVID.
That room is our current storage facility for all of our PPE. So that room is not available anyway right now. But yeah, there's plenty of locations that we could avail ourselves of, whether it's the high school or, a gym, one of our school gyms, or, when we can stay 6 feet apart. But we will host however the board feels comfortable.
Mr. Sprito, could we do a situation where, I mean, we probably would still have to cap the number of members of the public that we would let in. So could we do something where if a particular board member didn't feel safe, could they also Zoom in? Like, could we all be on computers as well, but be?
We could. We could be in person on a Zoom call. We could do that, yes.
I mean, because something to keep in mind is that, as we go forward, COVID hasn't disappeared. So there's a probability that somebody may need to quarantine during the meeting. So, I mean, God willing, beautiful, spring rolls around, everybody gets vaccinated, we go back to normal. But just the way everything has been, you can't say certain, there's no way to call it. So I would definitely like to keep the options on the table of, having the Zoom capabilities for those that are maybe not comfortable and those that may need to quarantine. And, God forbid if in the fall things don't get any better, we have to go back to the format.
If I may suggest, is there, and I don't know if there is a specific board policy regarding, for example, someone before Zoom, we were talking beforehand, we never heard of Zoom. But if someone was not physically able, they can call in. I don't know if there's a specific bylaw regarding that, but that might be something that needs to be looked at and revisited now that we are used to this type of technology. So I'm just suggesting that to the policy committee.
Also, one thing to consider if you do that, I'm considering this myself when my students come back, is if they're all going to be on Zoom, some at home and some in the classroom, then the students in the classroom are going to have to wear headphones, and only one can speak at a time, because if you have two computers next to each other and the microphones are both on, you're going to start getting feedback. So it can be done, but it's just a little bit tricky to make sure the audio is correct.
I do also echo what Ms. Goff mentioned about having an in-person. If we are expecting our staff and our students to be in person, we should reflect that as well.
And I'll chime in on that. Keep in mind that, what we do for the district is, it's something that can be done remotely. So if you can err on the side of caution and not bring additional exposure to the buildings, there's also something to be said about that. Everybody that's a board member is a volunteer, and we all have our own jobs where we all have our own exposure. So it's not that, because we're, Board of Ed members, we're all living out of out of our basement. Everybody has their own exposure in their own line of work. So it's, it's not about necessarily, I don't think, from that end. Just my 2 cents on it. But yeah, absolutely. At this point, the idea is that as vaccines do come to the, to the forefront, that things will get better. But again, it doesn't, it'd be prudent to maintain the options on the table of going back to Zoom if needed.
I just want to echo what Dr. Merrill was saying, that it is an important point that if we are meeting in person, that does show that our schools are safe and we can go in and feel safe to have our meeting and be socially distanced and, do all the correct procedures. But it does make a big difference, I think, to the teaching staff and people that work there too, that we can go in and we can meet there. It's safe for us too. So I think there's a lot of merit to that point.
If I may, Mr. President, to echo everyone's sentiments, I feel at best, the board should be at least given the same opportunity to either meet in person or meet virtually as we do with our teachers and our students. Make it evenly across the board. If half the board wants to meet in person, the other half, because of concerns, which I completely respect, wants to log in virtually, then so be it. I mean, we're allowing our teachers and our students to do that also.
Thank you, and it's a good, and the point is well taken from Dr. Morell's end that we should revisit, or we should put something in place as far as policy to define that structure.
So, Mr. President, will we discuss this again before the next meeting, or how would we revisit this before the April meeting, just to gauge the general consensus?
I mean, at this point, it seems that the general consensus is that we should meet in person this coming April. So, unless somebody, and if we do provide the option of that remote, then, like Mr. Carr mentioned, that capability is available for those that can't make it or rather than that be in person. So, unless somebody strongly opposes that, I think that's the direction we can go in. Anybody else? Mr. Spirito, where would you, what's the suggestion as far as the meeting room?
Well, listen, as you know, we've used the high school. That is an option. I was also thinking we could use either our Roosevelt gym or Lincoln Middle School gym. That's an option. I'm only suggesting that because my thought would be similar to how we run our sporting events, where we could easily mark our bleachers so that we can mark 6 seats that are 6 feet apart in our bleachers where people could sit. That's an option. We could also set up chairs. We could use our Roosevelt cafeteria and set up chairs like we've done in the past. So, I think we'd have to, what I will do is I'll look. The only downside of the high school auditorium is some people are on the stage and some people are on the floor, which I don't think is ideal. It's kind of hard to communicate between the board members and myself that way. So I'd like it a venue where we can all sit, on one level. So that's why I was thinking one of the gyms or the cafeteria at Roosevelt, for example. But I can look at, what I think is space-wise, what would be the best for us. I can let the board know what I think is the best location and setup.
Let's just figure out the different options. Is there one where students do not, go in and out? They don't occupy during the day?
I'm sorry, are there locations that students don't occupy?
Yeah, out of the ones that we potentially could have, is there a location that students do not use it during the day, during the school day?
To be honest, the only one that I can think of would be the high school auditorium. They don't really use the auditorium at the high school. All the other rooms are being used by students at some point. The Lincoln CAF is kind of tough because we have some, they're not using that, but they're storing some furniture in there right now, furniture that's been removed from other rooms. And there's also some furniture for the media center, some new furniture that we didn't put in there, couches and chairs and things. So that probably wouldn't work just because there's like I said, they're storing things in that room. But no, the only room that I could think of that isn't occupied by students is the auditorium at the high school.
Got it. I mean, just thinking about reducing the foot traffic, right? I mean, at this point, we're trying to limit any additional unnecessary traffic into those buildings. So if we could keep it to an area where students aren't being part of it, part of it during the day.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
A direct entry and exit there. We wouldn't have to walk through the building if that would make people feel more comfortable. Like we just come in right off the street to the auditorium.
At the high school, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can use that. We've used it before. I'm not, if that's what the board wants to do, that's fine. We'll make that work, no problem. We've done it there, and everybody had their own table. We can socially distance. That's fine. If that's what you prefer, that works.
I mean, it seemed to work out well at the high school last time with the auditorium, no? I mean,
it's fine. If that's where you're most comfortable, that works for me.
Sure.
Okay.
Continuing with new business. Any other new business? No, any old business? Okay, and last but not least, general comments and questions from the board related to the school district.
I have something. Me again. Sorry. I would like to welcome Miss Erin Trow. I didn't get to say that earlier this evening. Welcome. If you need anything from any of us, please reach out to us, but we're very happy to have you on board. And secondly, I would like to echo the comments that were made earlier about the parent night last night for the high school. I'm a first-time high school parent, well, about to be. I have an 8th grader. And though it was done virtually, Ms. Weigert did a beautiful job, and everybody else that was involved, the guidance counselors and Dr. Jabrona and Ms. Pasquale and Mr. Mazzacca. I don't know any better. I don't know how it would be in person, but it really was really well done. And now we can watch it. I had a friend that couldn't make it. I sent her the YouTube link. So there is something to be said for the virtual, the digital world of just sharing it and rewatching it. I let my son watch it. It was really well done. I'm looking forward to him being a bear.
Mr. Reicher.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things. Ms. Goff beat me to it, but Jen, welcome to the board. Also, congratulations to the girls volleyball team today, which I think, Alec, you're almost off the DL, right? Aren't you coming back?
Yeah, I actually was cleared by my surgeon today, so I should be back next week.
That's what I heard. So welcome back. And we'll see you out there. One thing about the streaming for the volleyball is, obviously, away games, we would like to be there. People would like to be here to see it. But if there is a silver lining in terms of streaming it, I had different family members who were very far away today who were able to see my daughter play in the game. So there is a silver lining, possibly to it. Also, I just wanted to comment on the high school video that the principal and the teachers made, for the students was pretty poignant, that they're living through something that no one's ever seen before, and there is no right or wrong way to react to it. And they've done a great job of getting through a tough situation. And I thought that was like very well done. It was like a 15-minute video of all different teachers in the school, giving encouraging words to students and frankly, thanking the students for their hard work and to finish strong, in the fourth marking period. And Mr. Sprita, I actually have one question for you on something that Mr. Carr mentioned about, I don't know if it's a law, but what he was reading about the students, the parents having them retain themselves. Is that now a law that parents can do or not yet?
You know what, to be honest, I'm not sure if it's officially been approved. I don't believe so, but.
Okay. I mean, I was just I don't know, but I was just thinking, would this be a thing if, I think the way that he read it, if I was listening correctly, was before June 30th, they could retain themselves, but after June 30th, it was the superintendent's discretion. If, students in high school might do that for sports, like, have another junior year before you become a senior, as a possibility for academics too, but some parents do that anyway to hold back their children possibly. Okay, I don't think it's a law yet, but I was just curious if you had heard anything about it.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Balous.
I also want to, welcome Jen, aboard. And like Abby said, we're all here. We're one team. So if you ever have to ask questions and reach out, feel free. I also want to thank Ms. Engel and Mr. Sprito and all the administrators who, made another good effort of expanding, keeping our budget within reason and always trying to, stay within that 2% or a little bit below. So again, thank you for your hard work.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Carr.
Just to piggyback off of what Mr. Sprito said, I had the opportunity today to read to Jefferson School second grade class. And I got to be honest with you, they were, and granted it was virtual, but they were so excited and it was so cool to see everybody in the classroom. And on a professional note, our officers are greatly looking forward. They are virtually meeting with our fifth grades, but we are looking forward to, once things begin to expand, getting back into the school and rubbing elbows with the kids again. And from, where we stand, I know the guys have and girls have greatly missed that interaction with our students. So, and again, Ms. Erin Trout, welcome.
Awesome.
President, just throw out there, congratulations again, Jen, and welcome aboard. If there's anything you need, by all means, reach out. Trudy and staff, another phenomenal job with putting the budget together. As was mentioned by Anthony, I always praise you for the hard work. It takes a lot of effort to put that together, especially with constraints in which you have to work with. And I'm also actually going to be reading tomorrow, Joe, and I think I might be just as excited as my daughter to do so. It's always a great time of the year to look forward to, and just really appreciate all of the patience from the teachers, staff, administrators, and students, parents, going back to 4 days a week. I know there's a lot of mixed emotions and going into it, but I can say and speak on behalf of my own children that the joy in their faces to come back to school was just unbelievable. That Monday they came home and just to hear them, it was worth it. Every second was worth it leading up to it, because it just showed how important it is to be there. And I just appreciate everyone's patience and everything being done to keep our students and staff safe. So thank you.
Thank you guys all so much for welcoming me for the first day. I'm excited to be here and glad to connect with all of you, really, and work on whatever you need, whatever you think I can possibly help with. Reach out to me, let me know. I will be reading to first grade on Thursday. So I'm excited about that too. I saw the opportunity, so I jumped in. I thought it was cool. So looking forward to it. And thank you guys again for welcoming me my first day.
Awesome. Welcome.
Mr. Clavillo, if I could add one thing, I'm just so excited to share this. As we're sitting here, I just got an email from Chilton Medical Center, who is asking if we can work together to vaccinate our teachers and school employees. So that is great news. I'm very excited. I already emailed her back and said I can't wait to talk tomorrow. So I have to give a shout out to my colleague, Mike Portis up in Pequannock, who connected me with Stephanie Schwartz up at, it's part of Atlantic Health Systems at Chilton. But she says that her exact email says, reaching out to see if we can work together to vaccinate your teachers and school employees. Can we talk tomorrow? And I emailed her and said, I could talk in 5 minutes if you want. But that's great news. So hopefully we can coordinate something ASAP to offer this to our teachers and staff.
Awesome. Exciting news. And I guess on that note, I just want to thank everybody, at the entire district, our parents, like it was mentioned, for their patience. Spring is right around the corner, and hopefully everybody has our best wishes that this is going to be a turnaround season. Thank you for everybody that's held down the fort, and everybody keep the faith that this will be a glorious spring. There is no executive session, so we'll take a motion to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Ehrentraut,
Yes.
Ms. Goff,
Yes.
Dr. Morell,
Yes.
Mr. Palouse,
Yes.
Mr. Reicher,
Yes.
Mr. Totaro, Mr. Totaro,
I think he's frozen.
I think he's frozen, yes.
okay, thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Turco,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Clavijo.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Stay
night.
safe, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Yes.
I heard him.
Yes.
I heard him. Good night.